Pizza is perhaps the most popular takeout food of all time, and with good reason. It's fast, it's convenient, and it tastes pretty darn tasty. But pizza is also ridiculously easy to make at home. And the best part of making pizza at home? You can top it with whatever ingredients happen to be in season. In the summer, I love making pizza topped with fresh figs, arugula, and prosciutto. And when fall rolls around, I can't think of a better way to usher in the season than by making a sweet potato pizza topped with caramelized onions and Gruyere cheese. Before you make your pizza, you need your pizza dough. You could easily buy ready-made pizza dough from your supermarket, but there's something so satisfying about making dough on your own, and I'll show you just how easy it is. So the first thing we're going to do is to get 1.5 cups of warm water. Now it's important that your water is warm and not too hot or too cold, because if it's too cold, you're not going to activate the yeast, and if it's too hot, you're going to kill the yeast, which means your bread dough won't rise. And to this, we're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of sugar and 1 tablespoon of yeast. We're just going to set this aside and allow the yeast to proof. So while that's sitting, we're going to get a large bowl, and in here we're going to add about 3 cups of flour and about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And to this flour and salt mixture, we're going to add our yeast water, which should be proofed by now. So we're just going to toss this into our flour mixture. Just dump all that right in. And to this, we're also going to add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. So you mix, mix, mix. So once we've got our roughish dough formed in our bowl, we're just going to want to dump that out onto your countertop. Lightly dust that with flour because we're going to start kneading this. And by kneading, I simply mean working the dough with the palm of your hand. You push it out away from you with the palm of your hand, and you pull it back into you. You turn it and you repeat the same thing. So once you've kneaded your dough for a couple more minutes, it's going to turn from a shaggy, sticky, gooey mess into a smooth, elastic round of dough like this. So we're going to let that rest to let the gluten relax, and we're just going to put that into a large bowl, which we've oiled with just a little bit of olive oil. And we're going to cover that with a cloth and let it rest for about an hour or so. So while the dough is resting, we're going to start on our caramelized onions. You're going to need about 2 yellow onions, and you're going to want to slice them thinly. Now keep in mind, as you're caramelizing the onions, they are going to lose volume, so you don't want to slice them paper thin, otherwise they're just going to disintegrate into nothing. So once you've sliced up all the onions into little half moons, we're going to start the caramelization process. Basically all you want to do is heat up about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So we're just going to toss in the last of our onions into our saute pan. Going to give that a good stir. And here's the thing about caramelizing onions. You don't want to crank up the heat all the way, because if you do that, all you'll be doing is essentially browning the onions and not caramelizing them. When you keep the heat on medium to low, it slowly cooks the onions, which gives all the sugars and the onions enough time to break down and caramelize. And it's going to take probably about 35 to 40 minutes to do this whole caramelization process. I usually check on it every 10 minutes or so. So we're going to let these onions go for about 5 more minutes. And while that's going, we can start peeling and chopping our sweet potatoes. So you want to chop up your sweet potatoes to about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch thick. And once you've chopped up all of your potatoes, you're going to want to put them on a baking tray. Drizzle over some olive oil with a generous sprinkling of salt and pepper, and you're good to go. So once your sweet potatoes have been coated in olive oil, salt, and pepper, just put that in your oven and heat it to about 450 degrees. Roast these for about 15 to 20 minutes, and you're all set. So while that's roasting, we're going to get started on our pizza dough. So our dough has risen. It's about double in size, which is great. So we're just going to punch that down, and we're going to divide this dough into 3 pieces. So once you divided your dough into thirds, you just want to give them a quick knead to make them all smooth and supple. And you want to let that rest for about 15 to 20 minutes to let the gluten relax, so when you stretch out the dough, it doesn't shrink back in. So just cover your dough with a cloth and set that aside. And during that time, we're going to make the last part of our pizza, which is my secret ingredient. It's a rosemary-infused olive oil, which we're going to use to drizzle over the pizza when it's cooked. All you need is about 4 tablespoons of olive oil. And to that, you want to add some fresh rosemary. Just set that into the olive oil, put that over low to medium heat, and allow that to heat through for about 5 minutes. So we're just going to put this rosemary oil aside for now. And let's check our sweet potatoes. So once our sweet potatoes are done, we can start forming and assembling our pizzas. The first thing we're going to do is to get a baking pan. And we're actually going to turn it upside down, and we're going to make and bake our pizzas on this flat surface. The first thing we're going to do is to dust it liberally with cornmeal. The cornmeal prevents the pizza from sticking to the pan and also gives it a nice crunch when it's been cooked. So once you've dusted your baking pan with cornmeal, you can start stretching out our pizza dough. You can simply stretch it out and then pop it out onto your pan and just continue to stretch it out there. So once you've stretched out your pizza into what resembles a circle, remember this is a rustic homemade pizza, you can start putting your toppings together. I've got mozzarella cheese and I've also got some Gruyere cheese. So how we're going to assemble this is we're going to do it in layers. The first layer is going to be the cheese, then you're going to put your caramelized onions, followed by your roasted sweet potatoes. And once you put on the final layer of mozzarella and Gruyere cheese, just pop that in the oven, which has been preheated to about 425 to 450 for about 10 to 15 minutes. So after about 10 to 15 minutes, your pizza should be all done. So just set that pizza aside for now, and we're going to do our finishing touches. I'm just going to chop up some cilantro. And there we have it, our sweet potato pizza with caramelized onions and Gruyere cheese. It's so easy and so good. Honestly, people, why would you take out when you could eat in? It's convenient and but pizza is also ridiculously easy. I can't say it!
Okay, it's okay. Alright, then don't say.
Oh, I'm crying! Let that rest for about 5 or 20 minutes. 5 or 20? What am I saying? Let's give it a try.